Welcome back, my fiendish friends, to another episode of Lynch Paints, where in today's episode we're going to be unlocking a hidden Sith holocron and painting one of the most dangerous and evil Sith assassins that the galaxy has ever seen. We're of course painting Darth Maul, the legend himself. So let's grab our paints and paintbrushes and let's get straight into it. However, before we take this path down the dark side, we will need a selection of paints, and these are all the ones I've used in this video today, alongside which we will need a medium-sized brush to go with, a fluffy brush, and a teeny tiny brush for all of those deviously teeny tiny dark places. So, as always, the first step is going to be to prime the model, and this time I'm going to use a black acrylic primer. So out of the box, you will have Darth Maul and 3 of these lovely, but little adorable Sith probe droids. So we're going to start out, not with the main man himself, but we're going to start out with the probe droids, first of all, just to kind of get them done and out of the way. So I have some of this black, and this Stormvermin fur, which is a lovely darkish grey. I'm going to have maybe a 60-40 mix of the black and the dark grey. I'm going to start out with doing the armour panels of these tiny little guys. So simply just grab yourself a medium-sized brush and have a little play around with it. So that initially, to me anyway, it might not show up too well on the camera, is a bit too bright, so I'm just going to add in a little bit more black, and we will start to wet blend as we go along. And we're wanting to sort of end with the armor panels nearest the front, near the lens, a brighter grey, and then the ones towards the back as well, just where it ends, also in a lighter grey. Then as we move along, we're just going to add in a little bit more of the Stormvermin fur as we build up our colours to the sort of brightish grey that you sort of want. But we don't want it too bright, because of course these droids are meant to be pretty much all black, but we don't want to paint it all black because that'd be quite boring. But what we will do, just as like a final highlight, is that we will use the Stormvermin fur just to highlight a few areas to give the illusion of this kind of blended effect. So now I'm just going to use pretty much pure Stormvermin fur. Just going to thin my brush down just a tad. And then you can either use a very teeny tiny brush, or you can just use the edge of the brush you're using, whichever you feel most comfortable with. And we're just going to pick out a couple of the highlights. Don't have to do all of them, but if you feel like you must, then you must. So I'm going to move on to his lens, and I've noticed that just in the box art, at least, there is a bit of a blue hue to it. So I'm going to take this Incubi Darkness, and again I'm just going to mix in some black just to darken it down, and then we're going to apply a coverage all over here. And then what we can do is just add in, because it's quite a small area, you can add in just more of this Stormvermin fur. And in terms of like the reflection source, I'm thinking maybe towards the top. So we're going to make it lighter towards the bottom. That way we'll get a lovely little contrast going on and it will look super, super well. And then I'm just going to use some of this Coax white just to make it a little bit brighter. And then I'm going to switch over to a much finer detail brush. Oops, not the camera there. And then we're going to cut just underneath where we've been. And just follow the curve just a little bit there. I'm going to rinse that off. And then take our white. It doesn't have to be pure white, because of course the colour of the lens glass or whatever they use will be, of course, a certain colour. And then we're just going to apply just a little dot up at the top, and then a very light blue just as a final little bit just underneath. Then finally what we'll do is that we'll take some of this Iron Warrior Silver, and with a smaller brush we're just going to do a quick bit of dry brushing just to pick out some of these mechanical parts, these wires, and of course the antenna. So then, that's the probe droids done, and yeah, didn't take that long at all. I do wish, however, that they had a equal mixture of the different heights of the flight stands, but that's just a little kind of personal thing really. So, on to the main man himself. Moving on to Darth Maul. Now, it is a fantastic miniature. There's loads of detail on this and loads of textures. So, there's two ways we can go about it. We can either painstakingly wet blend and paint every single crease and raised area on all of the cloth, or we can give it a nice simple dry brush, bang, straight over the top, and we're done. However, we're going to do a little bit of both. So, and we are going to grab no, not Storm Fair. We're going to take some of this Incubi Darkness and Abaddon Black, because I think that adding in this blue is going to be a really nice contrast in with the red of the saber. So a little bit of each, and this is just a really old sort of makeup brush, and they are a hell of a lot cheaper than having to buy a proper dry brush. So I'm going to take the majority of the paint off, and we're going to just start by giving it a quick and dirty dry brush. Now I've just added in pure Incubi Darkness into the dry brush. So now that we're done with the dry brush, I'm going to switch over to a regular brush. And then with this medium-sized brush, we're just going to start to work from the end and just kind of pick out some of the raised areas, thinning your brush down, of course, with just a tiny bit of water just to help with the flow and so maximizing precision as best we can. So the next step, I've added in some of the Storm Vermin fur. It was a little bit too much, so then I added in some add-on black, and then I basically created a sort of a greyish blue hue. And I've left the boots for now, because I like to do the boots and probably the gloves as well with just using the grey, so it has less of that blue tone to it, and it should stand out really rather nicely. So with this, we're just going to start to wet blend again, just going back over the raised areas, and we will keep on adding in more and more of the grey until we reach a point where we are satisfied with the blend. So with his main robes done, we're going to go over the boots. So I've mixed in Abaddon Black and the Storm Vermin fur to create a very, very dark grey. And then much like with the robes, we're just going to pick out the raised areas and then build up to a nice brighter grey. So that now that his accessories are done, we're going to start on the head. So I'm going to mix in again this really dark grey, and then we're going to thin it down with enough water just to make a nice smooth transition over the face. I don't want it too thick because we don't want to ruin the very fine details that are on the face, or like the Sith tattoos that we're going to be tackling in just a mo. But I thought while we are at this stage with all our sort of dark greys and that sort of thing, it'll be a good time just to go over all of these bits before we get into the really fiddly stuff with doing all of the red tattoos on Maul's face. So now is the moment we've all been waiting for, the red. So let's close these up. Then we're going to grab a very fine detail brush. Take some of this red, thin it down with a little bit of water just to help with the flow of your paint, and we are going to have a little look and trying to pick out his Sith tattoos. So I'm going to quickly do his horns. So again, grabbing the same fine detail brush. I was going to use a mixture of this Mornfang Brown and Screaming Skull just to start out with, and then we're just going to highlight it with the Screaming Skull. Next step, we are going to be painting the eyes. So I've got some of this Vallejo Armadillo Lemon, or just lemon yellow, and this paint is a little bit on the thin side in terms of, I don't know, just the colour. It just needs a good couple of layers. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to take this Corax white base, and with the base colours from Citadel, they can go over pretty much any other previous colour. So I'll take a little bit of this, and then we're going to go as carefully as we can and do the eyes. Now, as always, and prime example, I can do one eye really, really well, and then the other one looks a little bit wonky. So I'm going to just try and fix it. If you do get a little overspill, then what you can do is, with the previous skin tone colour that you have, you can just go back over and just tidy up where you've gone wrong. Right, that looks a little bit more uniform. So, yeah, chuck it over there, we don't need it. And we're going to go over to yellow. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to apply this just over the white. So just to create that glow, we're going to take some of the red, I'm going to thin it down so it's practically a wash, and then we're going to just wipe it off on your thumb or your finger just to check how much red is going to be applied. So I'm just going to thin it down a little more, and then we're just going to go and, well, that's too much, pop a little bit. I'm going to try and aim for sort of either side as best we can. If we end up filling it, then we can always just draw some of the paint off and then use the bristles just to pull back and remove some of that paint. And you can kind of fiddle around with this until you've really fine-tuned it to the desired look that you're after. So now we're going to move over to his lightsaber. So for this we're going to need a couple of metallic paints. You can do it in a non-metallic form if you like, but I quite like the certain shine that comes with it. So we'll start out with this Iron Warriors Silver. And I'm just going to take a medium-sized brush, and then we're just going to very lightly dry brush just over the top using the side of the brush, just so then we're not going into the recesses as best we can. If you do end up going into the recesses, however, you can always just apply a black wash just to fill in those gaps and make the rest of it stand out. Then afterwards we'll move over to this Runefang steel. It's a really nice bright silver, and that will really help to make it pop. And then we'll be running that over the top portion of the lightsaber just to create that sort of shiny reflective surface. So finally we're going to move on to the lightsaber blade itself. So I'm going to take this Mephiston red, some of this Abaddon black. Just going to mix the two to make a darker red. And then what we'll do is that we'll start out with just a nice base coat over the top. Then as we progress, we want to ensure that we have a nice smooth consistency. So just take one long stroke with the brush going all the way down. You don't want to be sort of working in too much, because then that may show up at the end. So we want it to be smooth as we can. And then as we're building up our colours, we want to ensure that the lighter portion of the lightsaber is going to be emanating from nearest the hilt. So for example with the red, let's jump onto that now. We're going to start out there and work up. And again, keeping your paints thinned, and you don't have to wait for the paints to dry, because otherwise you may find blending it a little bit more difficult. So we'll go almost to the end, and then as we add in more and more of the red, we're going to be working further and further towards the hilt of the lightsaber. Now, to brighten up the red, you don't want to be using white, because otherwise you're going to end up with a pink. So you want to add in some yellow, as this will retain the nice kind of warmth colour of the red. And also, you don't really want Darth Maul running around with a pink lightsaber. Unless you do, then you can paint it however you like. It's entirely up to you at the end of the day. And so here we are at the end of the video. So this is how I went about painting one of my all-time favourite Star Wars characters from the franchise. His Sith Pro droids, they were an absolute doddle to paint. Luckily I didn't bother to attach them onto the flight stands when I was painting them, because otherwise I had the fear of the paint going on to that lovely crystal clear acrylic stand. Now with Darth Maul himself, he was a little bit tricky to do, just because of all that texture and all that lovely detail, and the fact that he is majority black was a bit of a challenge, to say the least. Now, in regards with the lightsaber, I didn't bother to do a glow effect paint on him this time, just because of time and trying to get this video out, and I know it's going to be a bit of a late Halloween episode, but I mean the schedule was on for Sunday and I couldn't get out earlier, so apologies for that, but hey, a little kind of belated Halloween episode for you. So I think later on down the line I will be getting out my airbrush and giving him some nice lovely glow effects. If I can get that on camera, I'll happily show it and share with you, all my friends out there, exactly how I did it. So if you enjoy this video, again, please take to the like button and give it a good old prod, and if you're new, subscribe will be massively appreciated as well. Only takes 2 seconds and the button is right down there as well. And alongside which, comment down below, is Darth Maul one of your favourite characters? If not, let me know why. If he is, then thank you very much. And there will be a link to my affiliate link for Wayland Games down below, a link for the link, you know what I mean, whereby you can pick up some Star Wars Legion goodness for yourself at a lovely discount as well. And if you'd like to support the channel a little bit more, then you can happily go over to my Coffee page, whereby you can just send me a couple of pounds, dollars, whatever your local currency is, and all of that, as well as the affiliate link, goes towards back into the channel to purchase more projects and to show everyone out there in the world exactly how to paint them. So, without further ado, stay safe, stay beautiful, and we'll see you all next time.